In this video, I'm going to discuss derivatives of inverse functions. But before we discuss the derivatives, let's discuss what inverse functions are. If I give you a function called f of x and its inverse, f inverse of x, let's go ahead and call that g of x. We know that f of x and g of x are inverses if f of g of x equals x and if g of f of x also equals x. Both of those things have to be true. So here's a quick example. We know that the tangent of the arctangent of x equals x. So the tangent and arctangent are inverses, and also the arctangent of the tangent of x equals x, because these two functions are inverse functions and they undo each other. Another example of this would be if we look at for values of x greater than or equal to 0, the function f of x equals x squared and g of x equal square root of x. If we check to see that they're inverses, we're going to do our f of g of x, and we better get x. So we take our function f, which is something squared, and we put g inside of there. And when we square a square root, we get x. But remember, we also have to test g of f of x, and we have to make sure that that also comes out x. So now we're going to take the square root of f, which is x squared, and it comes out okay. So there's just a quick review of inverses and what that means. So what we're going to see now is how the derivative of an inverse function is related to the original function. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at two functions. I'm going to let you know, or I'm going to tell you that f of x and g of x are inverses. So the first thing we're going to do is remember that f of g of x equals x, all right, by definition. So if we take the derivative of each side, we're going to take the derivative with respect to x of f of g of x, and we're also going to take the derivative with respect to x of x. Now, when we take the derivative of the left side, you have to use the chain rule, so this is going to result in f prime of g of x times chain rule g prime of x. And when we take the derivative of the right hand side, we're just going to do 1, because the derivative of x is 1. Now, what we're looking for is we want to find the derivative with respect to x of f inverse of x. Okay, so this is the same as the derivative with respect to x of g of x, because we said g of x was the inverse. So we're actually looking for g prime of x. So this is what we want to figure out. We have it right here. So since we want to figure out what g prime of x is, all we need to do is solve for it in our equation. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to divide both sides by f prime of g of x. And what results is g prime of x is equal to 1 over f prime of g of x. Another way to write this is you could say that, remember, this is f inverse, so we could say that f inverse, the derivative of that at x, is equal to 1 over f prime of f inverse at that x value. Okay, so this is kind of a formula that we need to remember. We're going to learn how to apply that in another video, but for now just remember this formula, and I'll rewrite it again here for you. So here's the formula rewritten. Be very careful when you're writing this. Don't confuse the inverses and the derivatives, because there's a lot going on here and you want to make sure you have that straight.